Welcome to BearHunter.tv. I'm your host, Zane. This episode will be talking about baiting for your bear. Okay, the first thing that I typically do when I'm setting up my bait site is go ahead and set up my game camera. Nice thing about setting up your game camera at this stage of the game is later you can go back and make sure that it's picking you up as you move about your bait site. You're going to be moving around the bait site just as much as any bear would, so this way you get a good chance to see if you are being picked up. Next thing is to start clearing the site. There's all kinds of ferns, branches, twigs that are going to be in your way. You want to get those out of the way as much as possible. Again, try not to spit on the ground or let your sweat fall on the ground. I don't have my gloves on here, but I'm trying to avoid using my hands. Later on, I will have some gloves on. And ideally, again, rubber boots and rubber gloves are the best to eliminate. Next, I take any wood that I can find in the area, secure the crib. It may need reinforced from the previous winter, and you want to make it so that it's high enough to keep the barrels in place if the bears try and pull on them, but you don't want to make it so high that you crush your barrels. So the bear will get up on top. Raccoon. One thing I would warn you about is I have seen skunk crawl into the backside of a crib, so you might want to make sure there's no animals back in there as you're working on your crib if it's left over from the previous year. You might get a little bit more than you bargained for. Here's where that game sled comes in handy. Those barrels are heavy. You can use the game sled almost as a dolly. It slides across the ground fairly easy, and then you can use the front lip to lift up your barrels. Uh, this is a marshmallow filled 55-gallon drum, and it will start to ooze out on the bottom side after I get it set in place. It's just a mess to deal with. And the less you have to touch it, the better. And then as I bring my bait out later, you'll see I'm using that sled, and it's very easy to get the sled right up close to the barrels. And then as the barrel starts to get empty that I'm pulling food out of, I can lift up the back end and slide most of the rest of that food into the front of the receiving barrels. Okay, I'm down to what I hope is my last trip out to the bait site. I have my ATV loaded. Just to let you know, this is kind of what I've been doing every trip. I have a game sled, barrel full of food attached to the back of the ATV. This time I'm bringing my fry lighter grease out. I have my anise oil mixture, and I have some rags in the back there I'm going to hang from the tree, and I'll soak those down with the anise oil so that that will spread a scent throughout the entire area, and hopefully the wind picks it up and carries it out into the woods so the bear will get that. gloves. At this point, I'm going to get my rubber gloves on and I'll start handling the food sometimes with my actual hands as opposed to any other device. Are two other tools that are very helpful when you are trying to put together your bait site. One is a pitchfork, the other is some kind of device like a hoe or a rake that you can push the food back into the back of the barrel and pack it in. I happen to have a small rake here, and it does a fairly good job, although the handle is getting kind of weak. So I also had a stick that I used in the woods from last year to push it back. Very handy when you're trying to get that food crammed into the back. Depending upon how often you can bait, if you have a lot of bear coming to your bait site, they can wipe out two 55-gallon drums in a matter of 4 to 5 days. And you want to try and not have that site actually go empty without food. Your bear will get discouraged and they'll go somewhere else. So you want to try and keep them as close as you can. But stronger the smell. Okay, at this point, I'll try and speed things up a little bit. This entire operation from start to finish took me roughly 6 hours for this particular day. Going back and forth, I made about 8 trips out to the site with the ATV and the game sled, putting the food into the 2 barrels, hanging the game camera, clearing all the debris, the sticks, the branches, anything that was in the way of a clear shot into the kill zone where the bear would be coming in, setting up the marshmallow barrel, um, getting rid of all the extra debris of garbage that I brought into the site. I want to get it out of there, and then putting the grease onto the barrels themselves, which you're going to see here in a little bit. Final steps here are to take the anise oil mixture of 50% cooking oil and 50% anise oil, and you're going to have it in your bottle. Have rags tied up through various spots throughout the site, roughly, I don't know, half dozen to a dozen of them. You can choose what you think is best. They're about 1.5 inch wide strips, maybe 10 inches long, just tied to individual little branches, and then I'm going to spray them down and saturate them with the anise oil. Then you see the 2 big drums of cooking oil there in the front. Those from old fryolators that I've talked to a couple of people in the area. They give me their old fryolator grease that they take out, I don't know, every other week. So I've been collecting it for over a couple of months now. Pour it right in over the food, saturate it entirely. The bear will come in as they eat that, get their paws on it, and they track it back to the woods and ideally attract more bear back to your site. Quite a ways. Oh, I hope the bear like it. Oh yeah. Ooh. I'm hoping you can see that. So this is what it looks like. Barrel full of marshmallow fluff oozing out. In a couple days that will saturate the entire ground. Again, you don't have to have that. It's just extra. You can see the actual site or the actual barrels filled now. I will come back tomorrow and just check on them. I don't think I'll have any activity overnight. It usually takes a couple days for the bear to start coming in. And then I will fill them again next Saturday or Friday will be ideal. This is Zane Daggett, your host of BearHunter.tv, and I hope that you will pass this on to your friends as well. Have a good one.